Hello, welcome to Microsoft Cloud Option webinar series. My name is Vivek Bhatnagar. I am CTO and founder of UnifyCloud. Okay, let's talk about one of the important aspect of our cloud strategy, selecting the first project or workload to move to the cloud. And there is a learning curve. Cloud is learning curve for everyone, and it's a time committed associated with cloud option planning. Even for experienced architects team, proper planning takes time. It takes time to align with the stakeholders, time to collect and analyze data, time to validate long-term decision, time to align people, processes, and technology. In most productive adoption effort, planning grow in parallel with the adoption. So it's not that you can plan everything and then start adoption, but it's go parallelly, and then you actually run it in a cycle and improve in with each release, with each workload migration in the cloud. You learn something and then go back, fix in your strategy, fix in your planning, and then do the whole cycle again. So it is important to understand the difference between a cloud adoption plan and a cloud adoption strategy. You need a well-defined strategy to facilitate and guide the implementation of cloud adoption plan. So just again, like you need a really well-defined strategy to facilitate and guide you the implementation of cloud adoption plan. So with this background, whenever you look at your selecting the first project, you should definitely align with your motivation. So motivation for an event, motivation for migration, or motivation for innovation. And you should also demonstrate like how this one project, even if it's a small project, can be shown as a progress to achieve the defined business outcome. So that's the most important criteria. And whenever you conduct this and you present back the finding the first project, there are few expectations that you should always keep in mind. That the first workload is a big source of learning. Like as we discussed that this is a complex process. There would be mistakes or there would be something. So it's a learning process. So basically, you should have a very clear feedback, not to repeat your mistake or what things you can actually do um, in your strategy to fix these things. It might also result into the production deployment, but like probably it might need more effort. So you may call it like maybe a pilot, and then you can expand that pilot. And also like this project should also help you in building long-term production solution. So that's why I try to make it as a pilot and doing this. There are a lot of examples, but I'm telling you that this all driven by what kind of motivation. For example, if the motivation aligned to any critical business events, then basically it might be simple, like you can have a project like against like disaster recovery, or you can actually have a project of a backup solution in the cloud, and that may be your first workload. But if it is linked with the migration motivators like saving costs and other thing, then I suggest that you select any non-critical workload and use the standard Azure setup guides and tools to move to the cloud. And lastly, if it is linked to innovation motivators, which I sometimes don't advise people to go to that side, but if you really select something which is like from the innovation motivators, for example, you want to disrupt the market or you want to expand globally and you want to transform your services, then maybe start small and maybe select a test and dev environment and make it as your first project. So this way you can um, reduce your risk. To analyze projects, there are like three types of consideration, and these are just not the complete list, but you can always use these three types of consideration when you actually go and look at any of these workloads. So there are business considerations like TCO, total cost of ownership, how critical the workload is, the financial impact, how many people are using it, how much development effort you need, and other things. So those are other considerations. And technical considerations mostly around that what kind of infrastructure you need to run this workload, like CPU, virtual machines, or native cloud capabilities. And finally, the governance consideration. So like what kind of SLA you need to fulfill. There should not be a very stringent SLA or compliances. And ideally, you should not have sensitive data or other things because it's your first workload and you just want to minimize your risk. So these are the consideration which you need to talk among yourself to go and decide your first workload. And there are a few more way of thinking this, that what should be your first workload. So you can always think about like to minimize your risk, like don't go in for mission critical things. Don't pick anything like which is regulatory or other things. Pick up something very simple, low monitoring risk. Even like not thousands of users using it, maybe limited users using it, and maybe a simpler database should be your first workload. And then maybe the next workload may be more complex, another thing. There is additional examples given in Microsoft documentation that how these workload going to be a first workload, and these are the very good examples. And majority of companies, I think, are following this. For example, like business continuity disaster recovery. This is very popular nowadays, post COVID-19 era. Like everybody want to make sure that they have their business up and running in this social distancing, work from home, other types of thing. So like always very popular like BCTR things. Then we have something called non-production workloads like test and dev environments, moving and other thing. In this list, like a lot of customers go and select like first those workloads which are going end of support. For example, Windows 8 or SQL Server 2008, they're going end of the support. So there's always urgency to move these workload to a supported platform like Microsoft Azure. Again, like VDI, Virtual Azure Desktop, is one of the most popular workload nowadays. It's not because this is easy to do, but it is driven by a critical business event, COVID-19. Test and dev environment is always my favorite workload, and I always push people to look at test and dev environment as a first workload, because this not only give me little flexibility to work and create the landing zone, because test and dev environment customers are little not that stringent, and if I go to touch their test and dev environment, they are not that stringent SLAs, and this test and dev environment give you understanding of all the things they are running in production, and actually it's less stressful always. Then selecting a simple applications, or maybe selecting a simple database, and there are other options. So these are the example of first workload in the cloud we should be taking. In case you are basically working specifically on Microsoft Azure, then you might need to also ask some qualification like questions, or maybe ask yourself like, who are the customers who are more inclined to go to the cloud and Azure? And this is a list of suggestions that we give, like customers who are running like end of versions of SQL and Windows, primarily like SQL 2008 and R2 and other things, or customer who are paying already for SA, so they will get a huge discount from Microsoft, and you can get your financial statement very attractive financial returns for them, or customers who are basically having like acquiring a company or going through certain events. Finally, like if you have like a person who is talking to their stakeholders, or a lot more time, like Microsoft is basically offering a lot of discounts and tool to bring SAP customer to the cloud. So this is just a general suggestion, like in case you are a partner and you are trying to bring a customer to the Microsoft cloud. This is the qualification customers you have. The qualification questions, and this is not again complete list. It may vary to different geographies for Microsoft.